Good evening and welcome. On Politics HQ tonight, these are the stories that made our headlines. The Ondo State chapter of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, has rejected the results of Saturday's governorship election, branding it a show of shame, which, according to the Independent National Electoral Commission, Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa of the All Progressives Congress emerged victorious with 366,781 votes, defeating his rivals. However, speaking to journalists in Akure on Monday, SDP chairman Benga Akimbuli condemned the election, accusing the APC of widespread voter intimidation and harassment of the party agents. He also alleged that many voters were blocked from voting, while vote buying was rampant. SDP's governorship candidate, Bamidele Akinboye, who received just 438 votes, echoed these concerns, claiming that party members were targeted by political thugs across various polling units. Let's also tell you that Governor Dapo Abiodun of Ogun State on Monday in Abeokuta swore in 20 newly elected local government chairmen following their victory during Saturday's polls. Now, speaking during the swearing-in ceremony, the governor urged the newly elected chairman to be accountable and ensure dividends of democracy cut across all parts of their local government areas.
As local government leaders, you bear the crucial task of translating state policies and national objectives into tangible benefits for your constituents. As advocates and implementers of the people-oriented policies of this administration, you are expected to work closely with the governor and other stakeholders to deliver on the vision of progress for Ogun State. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria underscores statutory rights for local governments. We will continue to ensure that we give you the needed support to achieve the set objectives before you. I challenge you to continue to uphold our vision by serving all citizens.
Our focus tonight, however, will be on the just concluded Ondo State governorship election, the takeaways and the take-ons. I'll be speaking with Emmanuel Onwubiko, is the National Coordinator of the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria. I'd also be speaking with Biodun Showunmi, a public affairs analyst, and also Olalekan, a public affairs analyst. Both men, of course, are in the studio with me. Welcome. I am Dapo Adegboye. Let's get some answers. In Ondo State, of course, reacting to what just happened over the weekend, the gubernatorial polls, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, through a statement issued recently by Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Biodun, has asked political parties whose candidates are unhappy with the outcome of the just concluded governorship poll to seek redress in court. Incumbent Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa of the All Progressives Congress was declared winner of the election by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Aiyedatiwa secured 366,781 votes to defeat his closest rival, Agbola Ajayi of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, who pulled in 117,845 votes to come second. The APC made a clean sweep, winning all 18 local government areas. Well, joining me, of course, to discuss this is Emmanuel Onwubiko, the National Coordinator of the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria. And, of course, he's joining virtually. Biodun Showunmi, a public affairs analyst who is with me in the studio, and Olalekan, a public affairs analyst who is also with me in the studio. Gentlemen, thank you for your time on the program.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Well, for many, they would say that what happened over the weekend in Ondo State, for some, they'll say, well, maybe not a surprise, but for some students of political history, they'll say, looking at antecedents where many of the governors just maybe have a term, and that's it. This maybe is just one of the unusuals. But let me start with you, Biodun. What you saw in Ondo State, the Google polls, are there reservations or, what do you think of the entire process?
Yeah, let me start by saying, first and foremost, the preparation for the election was better than in Ondo State. By virtue of the fact that INEC was able to get all the materials, their personnel, at least in 90% of all cases, to the venue at the appropriate time before 8:30 or by 8:30 a.m. in the morning. Yes, there were some hiccups which were not substantial enough to alter the outcome of that election. The second issue is the fact that there was hardly any violence recorded in that election. So for me, it's fair and credible. Now, the issue is, given the economic challenges facing many people within the country, how come that electorates in Ondo State still manage to vote for APC rather than another party? Because democracy offers alternative choices, so that if you're not satisfied with the performance of one party, you can then, choose another party. I don't think it's a stamp of approval of the economic policies of the administration in the country. No, it's just about local issues and a disorganized opposition. That's exactly
local. So what played out for you is the understanding of local issues by residents of the state.
Of the state, yes.
And disorganized opposition.
Absolutely.
So the opposition did not coordinate themselves properly.
PDP is badly divided. They've not been able to enforce discipline. They've not been able to resolve their issues. Both factions of the PDP have supporters in Ondo State. Both of them are not working together. Then one faction won the primary. The other faction chose not to work with them. That they would rather wait for 4 years, rather allow the incumbent governor, to go back, so that he can only spend 4 years because he has sworn to an oath once when Akeredolu passed on. So he could only spend 4 more years with the hope that hopefully they will have resolved the internal contradictions within the PDP, and then they will have an early opportunity to have a shot at governorship rather than having to wait for 8 years. That played out in PDP. In the case of Labour Party, it's a totally different case completely. Even though Labour Party is weak in Ondo State, no doubt about that. They have some significant presence in Akure largely and a little bit in Owo. Apart from that, they're virtually not a major force, numerically speaking, within Ondo State. Now, you have a situation where, again, that party badly divided. You have two different factions, one led by Alex Oti, Peter Obi, and the NLC, the major stakeholders. And then you have the court recognized Abure faction as the chairman of the party. And then we had a situation where, the Obi faction fielded Shola Ibisheni. And of course, the INEC accepted Shola Ibisheni until when the Abure faction went to court, and the Court of Appeal, insisted that the actual candidate is the Abure faction's candidate. So some days to election, about 3 days to election.
Thursday, yes.
On Thursday. So you can imagine the feeling of the supporters already mobilized by Shola Ibisheni of the Obi factions. They all just felt, no, this is no longer worth it. And then you have the other candidate of the Abure faction not having enough time to even introduce himself, not to talk of mobilizing voters.
That's Mr. Festus.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see the situation. In relation to NNPP, we all know clearly who some of these gubernatorial candidates are. They are all from either the PDP or APC. It's because they are dissatisfied with the primaries, they relocated to another. Would you relocate with your supporters who, in any case, their bread and butter is in their party, whether PDP or APC? So the problem you have, what played out in Ondo State are three major factors: the internal wrangling within the political parties. 2, you have the issue of a weak opposition, in the sense that those who lost the primaries, rather than supporting the incumbent, chose to rather let it pass, let Aiyedatiwa go for opportunistic purposes. And the third one is simply because Aiyedatiwa had taken a vow, taking the vote once, and he could only take it only 1 month. So the opportunity of going for another term is not there. So for opportunistic reasons, enlightened self-interest, the political class, depending on who wins, the parties are divided. So you now have the other faction, rather than campaigning for their party, secretly mobilized, for Aiyedatiwa, with a view to being able to have an early shot at gubernatorial again. All right,
Biodun, let me leave you for a moment. Let me bring Olalekan into the conversation, because, I mean, you've highlighted quite a number of issues, one of which you did say was that opposition parties there were largely disorganized. And, of course, that, in a way, contributed to what some people would say a landslide sweep of the governor winning in all the 18 local government areas. So I would like, Olalekan, your take. What happened over the weekend in Ondo State?
Well, some of the things he actually mentioned, not some of the things, almost all of the things he mentioned came into play during the election. Another angle I want to see it from is that, you see, one of the things that actually played out was, he mentioned the economic challenges Nigerians are facing and all of that. One of the ways I saw the economic challenges coming out was through voters' apathy. If you look at the figures, you will see that only 24%, thereabout, came out to vote. We have PVCs collected was around 1,750,000.
Yeah, almost 1.8. Almost 1.8.
And overall figure we had was up to 600,000. I think 560 or so void votes and all of that. That showed that there was serious voters apathy, and you asked if there were any surprises and all of that. For me, there was no surprises. This was expected. I predicted it earlier on before the election that there would definitely be voters apathy. And at the end of the day, and the truth of the matter is that we knew that the APC will win, because at the end of the day, this thing boils down to the highest bidder.
Because I was about to ask him that, how are you so convinced?
No, people have already said, if you look at the commentaries that have been coming from the election since Saturday, everybody already knew, there have been commentaries that there were voter inducement.
So you feel the APC maybe won largely due to inducement?
Well, that's my feeling. I was just not away from Ondo State. I was in Ondo State on Saturday, and there were really testimonies about all of this. You saw a video trending online. A woman was interviewed, and she said that actually Debo, that means we've gone to vote, and we have collected money. And so I saw the SDP talking about voters inducement and all of that. Today, Governor Aiyedatiwa was talking, and he said that he wasn't aware that people bought vote on his behalf. He did not deny it. What he said was that he doesn't have a hand in it. So at the end of the day, these were some of the things I predicted. If you look at the Edo election also, for example, there was voters apathy, and there were complaints about voters inducement. So if you look at what played out largely in the governorship election, the few figures we had, people came out, the few people that came out to vote. And why have we seen this voters apathy? Is a lack of trust in governance and in government today. So if you look at all of these things, people have lost interest in our electioneering processes. We hear people saying that even if we vote or we do not vote, whoever will win, will win. So at the end of the day, some of the things we predicted and many analysts predicted came to play in the Ondo State gubernatorial elections. We had and no party, the only party that could blame, that could talk like SDP did, was because probably SDP do not have the financial war chest to do all of this. Like you rightly said, violence was very, very low. The only place I think there was violence was around Idori. You saw, there was a video online where we saw where a guy came on a motorcycle and snatched a ballot box. And we saw a place where some of the thugs came and then they fired shots into the air. I think that was very, 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 very low where we had the violence in Ondo State. But largely, voters' inducement played out. And the two major parties engaged in it. The two major, it was APC and the PDP, engaged in this voters' inducement. So largely we could say that the economy, challenges everybody is facing affected the brought about the low turnout that was witnessed at the Ondo gubernatorial election.
So was it fair and fair?
Yes, it was.
Let me bring in Emmanuel into the conversation. Emmanuel Onwubiko, of course, the coordinator for Orua. I understand that Emmanuel is, of course, still trying to connect with us. Let's stay in the studio. Let me come back to you, Biodun. Now, one thing INEC did say before this election was that it will work on the shortcomings of what was experienced in the Edo elections, because there were quite a lot of, what I call it, reservations in that election. INEC didn't deny it. They said, you know what, we'll look at some of these issues. Part of it includes logistics, result management. We saw what happened over the weekend in Ondo. Did INEC, in a way, use this election to redeem itself in those areas?
Yes, I think so. They actually did very well. Look, if I'm to score INEC, I'll be scoring INEC 90-95% in performance. There is no system.
1995.
Honestly speaking, there is no system without, hiccups. No. Don't forget, beavers, you are dealing with machines.
But Agbola, that's the PDP candidate, had some reservations as regards beavers. He did say that it took time.
It was slow.
Yeah.
Not that it didn't work. It worked. You are dealing with machines, and you are looking at less than 1%, of situations. Yeah. That is what we're talking about. And when you look at...
Could it also be as a result of the mass of people that came out? Because, the size was, appreciably manageable.
It could be. But don't forget, some of these machines, when you use them this year, you probably will use them for another 4 years. And so you don't know what happened in between. You and I know that moisture could even cause malfunctioning of equipment. So you are dealing with machines. So we should expect a degree of dysfunctionality.
All right, so you pick up from
there. It
there.
should not be substantial enough to alter the results of it.
Okay, you pick up from there. I understand that we need to go on a commercial break. When we return, of course, the conversation will continue. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This, of course, is still Politics HQ on News Central Television. And, of course, we are looking at the fallout of last weekend's Ondo governorship election, the takeaways and the take-ons. I still have my guests with me, Biodun, Showunmi, and also Olalekan. They are live in the studio. Hopefully, we'll get Emmanuel Onwubiko to join us virtually. Biodun, before we went on that break, you were trying to establish INEC's performance. Yes. Given what we saw in Ondo State and what we witnessed in Ondo State. You said you are scoring INEC in 95.
Yeah, because we are dealing with two similar terrain. Both of them have riverine communities. Yes. The logistics, the distribution of materials, and they got the logistics quite right in Ondo State. There are some hiccups in Edo State which they did not have, in Ondo State. So for me, we saw a measure of improvement. And don't forget, most of the results, about 85% of the results were uploaded through IREF, yes, even by 8 p.m. in the night, the same day of the election. Yeah. For me, that's a significant improvement. We've never recorded that in any election. So we must not fail to acknowledge, those issues. They're quite very important. We only need to continue to improve on our system. And as long as we continue to improve on it, we'll get it right eventually. In partisan politics, you can never have everybody agreeing, because the nature of democracy is partisanship. You are for one side or the other side. So people will always complain one way or the other. But the most important thing is for INEC and the public to hold INEC responsible for improving on the situation time and time again.
Olalekan, did INEC do well?
Yes, I'll score them well, especially in the area of logistics.
Are you also giving them a 95?
99.
99?
Yes. For me, the only area I think, which area I think the INEC couldn't, some of the results didn't come early. At the end of the day, we had 3 local governments delayed: Ilaje, Odigbo, and Eseodo. Came very late, like it came on a Sunday. I believe that Odigbo is actually not far from Akure. Odigbo is like maybe not 2 hours to Akure. And then maybe Ilaje, Riverine, and all of that. That's the only way. If you look at, just like you said, the logistics were quite good. People started voting before 9 a.m. on the day of election. And people, it was right. The issue of beavers not working, maybe it was the recorded incidence of not working was very, very low. And probably maybe 1 or 2%. The only complaint I had was from the PDP candidate Agbola, and like he rightly said, we cannot use that to say that the Beavers didn't perform very well. Aside all of this, I think INEC did excellently well. If you know some of the distance from Akure to some of these places, there are places that are in Akoko area, all this Akoko area, there are places you have 4 hours, 5 hours drive from Akure to all of these places. And by 9 a.m., even before 9 a.m., voting, started in some of these polling units in all of this area. So, and major issues INEC usually have in the election days are logistics issues. Sometimes you hear that even voting materials have not arrived in some places and polling units, maybe 11 a.m. or 11:30, and voting is expected to end around 2:30 or so. So we didn't have all of these issues. We have logistics gotten very right. Beavers largely worked very well.
Result management?
Result management, very good. In fact, when it said 8 p.m., by 4-5 p.m., we're already seeing majority of the results on high-rev portal already. And by night, we already had it. So it was, for me, the electronic transmission of results was very, very good. I scored them very high. So at the end of the day, and even security agents on their part, they did very well. And this is somebody was giving a testimony.
Did they do well? Because there are incidents of not just violence, but also disturbance. I mean, there was a video where, just like you said in Donry, where someone actually did attack a polling unit and carted away the
yes. We have over.
I wish we could get that video up on
we have over 2,307 polling unit centers. I can't remember.
3,900
polling unit centers. And we had just 2, polling units where we saw violence and all of that. So if you take out 2 out of 3,000, how many percent is that? So if you have this, you had somebody, an opposition member, gave a testimony in one of the polling unit centers, where he says that there's usually violence in that polling unit center. But he commended the security agencies, all of them, NSCDC, police, army, and all of them, that they ensured that there was no violence at that particular polling unit where they used to record, violence before. And so if you have largely like 98% polling unit center secured and all of that, then we could score them very high in that election. All
right. One issue that sort of stuck out like a sore thumb in this election, and coincidentally, it seems to be, it's not even a secret. Yes. And while we're on break, we even discussed it. That's the issue of vote buying. It was so rampant or rife that prior to the election, I remember on this program, I had quite a number of the candidates and their representatives, lay concerns that vote buying, was going to be really, really a thing during the election. Some even said as high as 20 to 30,000 naira was being paid to some people to induce voters. And we saw that payout, even though we know that there is a penalty, just like you have it on your screen there. The penalty for vote buying is a maximum fine of 500 or 12 months imprisonment or both. We saw that really happen on that day. Someone was even caught with 2 bags. Yes. There's a viral video where a man was caught with 2 Ghana must go bags of cash. There's also a video that was made available to News Central by the AAC chairperson of Ondo State, where some locals were distributing money. And a lady was complaining in that video that she was meant to be given 10,000 naira, it's short of 3,000. So where am I going to with all of this? You said that, of course, that's part of the video you are looking at. The one, this one you're seeing on your screen right now is the one that, of course, had to do with the violence that I mentioned and I called for earlier. Maybe we should just take a listen to it for a moment.
More arms. Those people that is around this place, it's no. Be on your feet, sorry, sir. Those people that is around us here, sir, be at alert. Someone is around this place. I told you. Be at alert, please. Be at alert. Be at alert. See gone. See gone. I told you earlier on. I carry you. Tell me something. Be at alert. Be at alert. Be at alert. Look at it. I not told you. Be at alert. They carry this thing at last. Sir, officer, I told you earlier on. Oh, I told you earlier on. Be at alert. Look at it, man.
Even security men took to their heels, but be at alert. Maybe at this point we'll just be at alert for a commercial break. We'll be right back. And of course, we are still very much alert on Politics HQ this evening. I still have my guest with me, and we are discussing the fallout of the just concluded Ondo State governorship election. Before we went on that break, we just played an amateur video where in Idonri, there was, of course, what I call it, a bit of violence there. You saw security men take off. And that brings us to the credence. I know some Nigerians were asking why were the men in uniform running. But again, we're meant to understand that there's a certain parameter. Security men can't carry arms at the polling units. So for that reason, maybe they too decided to take off for their life, But that, of course, is not given an excuse, because it's also expected that they have support, just some few meters away. But that's on the side. We're talking about vote buying, and it looks like our electoral system is gradually snowballing into being heavily monetized. What some people would call voter inducement. If it's not cash, it's materials, rice, beans, you name it, fabrics, sometimes even broom, some things plastic. You wonder what this, you wonder how people, will get. So my question to you is this, sir. How do you think this problem, if at all, can be nipped in the bud, Mr. Biodun?
We need to separate inducement from vote buying. Vote buying is criminal. When it comes to inducements, we all induce voters to come out to come and vote. Either by virtue of political promises during campaign, and you say, look, if you vote for me, I'll make sure you have water. So it means if I don't vote for you, I won't have water. You are inducing me to vote for you.
Canvassing.
So that's you are canvassing.
Is the word canvassing and inducement synonymous?
When you canvass and you don't attach condition to it, you are canvassing, I'm the best candidate. The moment you say, look, I know you don't have businesses here. I would, if you elect me, I will set up a factory here. That's inducement. If you are canvassing for vote, you only sell your candidacy. You don't offer something in return for voters. But in our home case in Nigeria, we have criminalized, just like the Americans, we criminalize vote
So
buying.
how would you call a scenario where maybe the person doesn't give cash now, right, on the day of election? He gives materials.
Even the biggest, the oldest democracy, America, we saw hamburgers,
So are you saying that
on the day of election, sir?
No, not on the day of election. Because on the day of the not on the day of election.
So
we
what
saw money being given to people, offered in different ways, 24 hours, just 24 hours to the election.
So on election day, do we still call it inducement?
Look, what is criminal is when you offer money to somebody not to come and vote, or you offer them money to vote for you.
Yes.
That is criminal. Now, the issue is you need to prove it. And some of it happened in Ondo State. With or without, it may not have changed the outcome of that election, because I don't think there's any evidence to prove that it's substantial enough to alter the course of the election. And don't forget, when you deal with issues like this, you need evidence.
Evidences.
And if you don't have the evidence, you will not achieve anything in court. But to your question, which is how do we prevent unacceptable inducement or vote buying in our country, we should understand one thing: you cannot do it, you cannot stop it. The reason is very clear. The nature of democracy we are practicing is winners take all. So a lot is at stake for each politician. They would do anything to make sure they win election.
Including pauperizing the population?
Is it only pauperizing? Including carrying guns. We saw examples of people coming to snatch ballot boxes and shooting.
Yes.
Even policemen were on their own. They will go to any extent as long as you practice winner takes all. We need to go back to the parliamentary system if you want to deal with this problem. And I'll tell you what I mean. Instead of expecting somebody who is only interested in representing Ogba to now go and campaign in Agege, Ikeja, in Magodo, in Ogba. You won't need to do that. You only localize your campaign to your own local area, and when you get elected, so you don't spend too much money. When you get elected, right in the parliament, you choose whoever would head the government. If Party A, if APC, for instance, wins 30% of the vote, they will only have 30% representation in parliament. If PDP wins 20%, they will have 20%. If NMPP wins 50%, they will have 50% representation. So along the line, rather than a situation where those who back different candidates, their voices are never heard. Even in a country where we know that with 37% of votes, people can become president.
Yes.
Now, the voices of the vast majority will never be heard. That is what we are having under presidential system of government. If we change to parliamentary, if you have 35% and have 15%, someone else has 5%, nobody has overall majority. So at the end of the day, we have to negotiate on program. So there will still be opportunity for the views, you know, for those who are not in government, you know, to have their own desires, their own programs, you know, being expressed in the parliament. Currently, that is not the case. What we have is winner takes all. Even if you win by 1%, it means 49% of those who voted the other way will never be heard for another 4 years. That's the end of it. So for me, I don't think presidential system of government itself.
But do you also think poverty plays a key role in buying the conscience of voters? Because what some analysts have said is that what we saw play out is mostly as a result of the state of the economy. People are hungry, people are desperate, and for that reason, they were offered money. And they said, you know what, this is maybe if not the only time I ever get anything from the government, and then they take it and do what they need to do, which is sell their conscience, right? So do you think poverty is also, you know, a condition in all of this?
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because it has always featured in our politics. Even when we had parliamentary system of government in the 60s. I remember quite clearly in 1978 or 79, when Awolowo was campaigning, his last campaign, Tabe Kuta, I was there. And he said, look, if they give you money, take it, it's your money. That they taken from when they were in power. Take it, but vote in line with your conscience. If it means whoever pays you is the best candidate, please vote for that person. If he's not, don't vote for that person. Awolowo made it very, very clear. So it means that will tell you this has always been in existence. The problem we have is that politicians have gotten better in the sense that they now know how to monitor and make sure that you are not voting in line with your conscience. You are voting in line with the money I gave you. That is why you see people trying to show, look,
ballot paper.
Yes. You have some people.
Some snap it, yes.
That was what, yeah. That's the reason.
Yes,
the
snap.
politicians have gotten
take it to one
better.
corner.
In some cases, you have to show proof before the money is transferred into your account. Do you see the point? So it's not that poverty. There's poverty.
So it's more of poverty of the mind.
It's poverty of the mind. There has always been poverty, and then the politicians are now smarter. They now have a way of enforcing their wishes. That is, take the money, but you must vote in line with what I ask you to do.
I mean, this is pretty much unfortunate. So I'd like to take Olalekan's perspective on this, but that will be after we'll come back from this break. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This is still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and of course we are discussing matters arising after the Ondo Guber post that happened over the weekend in Nigeria. I still have my guest in the studio with me. Let me come to you, Olalekan. For many Nigerians that sort of followed the trajectory in the state, they would look at it and say, out of the 18 local governments, I mean, the governor was able to sweep all of the local government, including local government areas that pretty much his party is not popular in. And for quite amount of people that are there and witnessed the protest, they said it was largely due to the movement of cash inducement. I mean, you are in the state. I would like you possibly also speak from a point of what you experienced. It looks like money and politics, let me use the word, permit me to use the word, vote buying and Nigeria's electoral process has come to stay. This is becoming a cancer.
Well, unfortunately, vote buying has come to stay with us, unfortunately. I used to say that this vote buying issue is a two-way thing. There is a willing buyer and there is a willing seller. You go to people, especially during campaigns, you go to electorates during campaigns, and when you get there, the first thing they ask you is, what did you bring for us? Even during campaigns, if you know what politicians put into campaign alone, you'll be shocked.
I hear that these days, some of them don't even bother spending so much pre-election compared to the day of the election because of voter, permit me to use the word inducement.
Okay, so even during campaigns, politicians spend a lot because you don't go to this, you don't go to people and say, this is my manifesto, this is what I will do. After all being said and done, people will ask you that, what have you brought to us? And that's why you see that at campaign rallies, you see rice, you see fabrics, you see different things. People ask you for these.
So is it right to say that the people are the ones enabling this politicians?
At the end of the you see, that's why I say it's a two-way thing. The willing seller and the willing buyer. People are ready to receive. See, if you look at our political system or electionary process and all of that, I've always said that there are people who don't have this money, who don't have this financial power, and as far as I'm concerned, they are credible. These people are competent, but nobody hears about them. Nobody's ready to listen to them. It is those who have the money. Either, as long as you have the money in Nigeria, whether you are competent, or you are capable, or you have integrity or not. What the people, electorate wants to hear is that the money language. Now, going to the election proper, you see, when we talk about voter apathy, that's why you see that at the end of the day, if you look at the timing, assuming it can be measured, people, we have a larger percentage getting to the polling unit earlier, but they stay back a bit. What they want to hear is that how much is Party A buying, so to speak.
So they are speculating.
How much is Party B buying? So the highest bidder, they cast their vote. We saw videos in Okitipupa where people, immediately they finish voting, they go to like a pavilion. That place looked like a stadium in the video. They go to a particular man, and the man counts the money. We saw it at the Edo elections as well, whereby they go to the back, and then they count the money and give. We saw the video you mentioned earlier, where a man was driving a Toyota Camry full of money, a bag full of money and all of that. So unfortunately, that's come to stay with us, because even electorate will not vote for you if you are not giving them money. And I've said that what has contributed to all of this? Trust deficit. And this is why I come to say that, you see, people in the position of authority needs to do more, needs to do better. Because the people look at it and say that, okay, we voted so year. What did we get from this vote? So if I vote now, and at the end of the day, I don't collect this money, what happens?
Can this narrative be changed?
Yes, it can. And it goes back to the leader, and the electorate also has a role to play. What is the role of the electorate? Size up candidates, assess candidates during campaigns, and vote for them. I keep saying that, you see, if I have collected money to vote for a particular candidate, that candidate is not accountable to me, because you have been paid for your vote. If you look at the calculations of the billions that goes into electioneering and voting, you'll be scared. And I've said that this is the foundation of underdevelopment. As long as we continue to have this, Nigeria, any state, will continue to be underdeveloped. Because politicians now see it as a business. I have invested 50 billion naira into this. Are you saying that I should go home with 0 naira at the end of 4 years or 8 years, so to speak? So at the end of the day, this has become a transactionary, politics and all of that. So politicians will also tell you that, okay, I've paid you during election. I need to recoup my money. The people will also say that at the end of the day, we won't see anything for the next 4 years.
I mean, let's look at the punitive or policy angle to solving this. We put it on the screen, the penalty, for instance, for wrong voter inducement, during elections. About 500,000 naira. There you have it on your screen, bribery and conspiracy. In other words, vote buying. The first option is paying money to any other person for bribery at any election, and also receiving any money or gift for vote or to refrain from voting at any election. The maximum fine there being 500,000 naira, 12 months imprisonment, or both. For some Nigerians, they say 500,000 naira. That's more or less a slap on the wrist. It's chicken feed for their sponsors. So I'll come back to you, Biodun. Do you think a review of this punitive measure and its enforcement will serve as deterrent?
I don't think so. If you put life imprisonment, it's not going to change anything, given the nature of the system we have, which is winner takes all. And a lot goes into election. Look, it's not just during voting. Go to the primaries. You had about $10,000, $20,000 being given to delegates. A delegate in party primaries is nothing compared to what the ordinary people are getting. Because they all know the reward system. They know you only need to get elected. There are people in Nigeria, in the legislative arms, who are getting, 15 million, 20 million a month. 30 million a month. So when you see that, and there's no money for development, and they cannot see any evidence of improvement in their condition, and then you turn around and you come to them again, they will ask you, look, what is in it for me? So it then becomes transactional, like Olalekan said. But the fact of the matter is the nature of the democracy we are practicing. It's so capital intensive. Just go back and look at what happened in America. If you go back and look at what happens in the primaries, how much money were donated. Elon Musk alone was said to have donated over $100 and something million towards Trump. If you look at the amount of money that goes into presidential system, there is no way. Once you monetize the system the way the presidential system of government is designed, it will only take the grace of God, to save that country. For instance, what happened in Senegal? Senegal realized that
we need to go.
The dual camera system is not beneficial, and they decided to change it to unicamera. It has only happened in one country. No country has ever been able to achieve that. So therefore, I think is the system we are practicing, except we change to parliamentary system.
I mean, what you're seeing on the screen on the side there, while Biodun was talking, is a classic case of vote buying that happened in Ondo State, where these individuals that you're seeing, they're trying to induce voters, to vote a certain candidate. But this, of course, will continue to be a conversation for a very long time. Well, that's the beat we can take on the show tonight. Thank you so much. In case you missed out, you can follow up or catch up on our YouTube platform. There will also be a repeat broadcast later tonight of this episode. You can follow us also across social media at News Central TV. You can follow me personally at Dapo Adegboye. Until I come your way tomorrow, good night.